This is Josiah. I'm just doing a quick demo of how you can use this Nimbus screenshot tool to work through a presentation that you've built in Google Slides. So it's already running in Chrome. My presentation's obviously in Google Slides. I'm getting it through Chrome. So all in one place use of this tool here. I'm going to jump into presentation mode, and that's going to follow us right in there, hopefully. Just a few things to notice on the tools that we have for this. We do have a little laser pointer that's available to use when you're presenting. I like using this when I'm doing a video because then I have a pointer on the screen that's a little easier to draw attention to different things. And then if I just click anywhere, I'm still progressing through the slides. So today we're talking about Flippin blended learning. So the why, the what, or the why, the how, and the what of this topic here. So why are we looking at this? We're talking about this because we want to give students additional access to content and designing this content from the get-go to emphasize these focus standards. So why do we need that additional access? We have kids who have issues with absences, some of that being related to sicknesses and different things. Otherwise, just kids who are delinquent. Those guys need to just start showing up. But anyways, the absences, some early departures, especially as we get into the spring season with sports. Those things come up and really take a lot of kids out 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're missing 1 or 2 periods 2 or 3 times a week at some points. Some kids, as I mentioned earlier, they're dealing with an extended leave, whether it's a health issue or whatever it is, and so they need access to the content. And then also differentiation, just being able to have our content delivery have some redundancy to it and meet the needs of our students. So that's why we're at this topic today, to give some background knowledge to this and to really frame any sort of learning strategy we do. We want to keep our backwards design principles in place. And that first one, the backward design, you're asking yourself, what are those desired results? Where are we trying to go here? What is the meaning? What's the big idea? And so really trying to align all of the tasks that we do with those things in mind and not waste our times on things that aren't something that we need to emphasize within this class at this time. And particularly when you're doing video and you're talking about content, we'll get into this. But when you're doing video, you really want to make sure that you are emphasizing the things that are really important and not being trivials. In our day and age, it's very easy for people to get distracted. In fact, I think I might be losing you, so I'm going to carry on. These are more than just reinstatements of standards and facts. Why does this matter? What's the real link? And so you can see in my presentation, I did start with the why and try to give some real meanings behind this, some real momentum behind this right from the get-go. Step two, now how are we going to be able to assess this? How are the students going to demonstrate that? And how are we going to know that they've acquired and can demonstrate those results? And so at this point, we really do need to think like an assessor and measuring that and looking for those different facets of understanding, which if you don't know about them, we'll get into them eventually. And then step three is, okay, now we know where we want to go. We know how we're going to measure how they got there. And now we can do the fun stuff. This is where we talk about our teaching strategies, where they're the learning tasks and the skills and the teaching strategies that we're going to employ so that students can develop the desired knowledge, skills, and understandings. So those things that they do need to critically engage in, emphasis on critically engaging in, so that they can develop those things and meet our measurable outcomes. So those are the backward design principles that we want to keep in mind. And now when we're looking at that, one thing we brought up recently at a different PD event was framing our instructional planning around this idea of the gradual release model. So I'm bringing that up again today, looking at flipping and blending. This whole idea of I know, I do, I'm going to model this for you, and your role as a student is going to be to actively engage and actively listen, I should say. And then we're going to transition through sort of a tiered approach of we're going to know together, we're going to do this together. And some of this is whole group, and some of this starts to break into smaller groups depending on the content and what you're trying to do. But the goal here is the student engagement switches from just active listening. Notice none of these are passive. Switches from active listening to active participation. There is tasks that they're required to do, but you are typically guiding them through these. And then there's a release of responsibility where the students are now responsible for the active performance and engagement in that task. And so when we frame what we're talking about today, really what we're looking at is framing it around this idea of you knowing and you doing. We're talking about getting students access to the content And so in the gradual release model, where that looks like is that really that focus lesson that's at the beginning of your class, where you're demonstrating what you know and modeling what you can do and giving that foundational knowledge and skills to your students. And so really the idea of flipping is providing access to that focus lesson in a way where they're able to get to it outside of the classroom. And one of the first things that comes to mind for this is sharing things via video, as I am doing here. Video tools provide an opportunity for you to deliver that content in a very readily accessible way. Here's some helpful how-tos. We'll start on the left side here and then look at some more of the nitty-gritty things on the right. Some helpful how-tos: record what you're already doing. So I'm going to share this presentation in class, and so the night before I'm sitting in my recliner drinking a beverage. It's just water, don't worry about it. And then I'm recording myself talking to my computer, just going over this. I can send this out to you guys now if I wanted to. Record what you're already doing. If that's something in classroom, we have screen capture things. Smart has built-in tools. Just start recording what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be some reinvented wheel here. Another thing is to borrow from someone else who already explains it better than you do. We're really in that age where we don't have to be the expert of everything. What we have to be the experts about is facilitating and getting our students what they need when they need it, and being able to measure and know and assure the students that yes, you have mastered this and you can move on. It takes a teacher to do that, especially in today's day and age. And then again, starting with our design principles in mind, we want our big ideas in mind. We want to integrate our assessments throughout. And so now moving more to just specifically using video to accomplish this. Establish those learning outcomes. So these are ideas. What can you do in these videos that make the cut? To set up where you're going. Hook the kids into the standards with some reality checks and some real life things. Build that background and foundational knowledge. Again, these are things that would be making your focus lessons anyway, so it's not like it's something that needs to take a full 48-minute class period. This is the 7-10 minutes at the beginning of your class where you are building in some knowledge and setting students up for success for that learning time, and then also guiding the students through the first steps in the learning task. So maybe dipping into session 2 or step 2 here a little bit, where there's a little bit of that handoff, but especially in the context of a student missing class or planning on missing class, and being able to get them accessed to the content and really get them launched into those tasks, and to where that you can hand off some of that responsibility would be where these videos would just naturally fit the best. And so the tools that we already have to support this, one, you're going to want to think about how you're going to organize it. If you're not already using some sort of digital tool to organize your classrooms, you got to get on that horse. Two of the ones that we have that make this readily accessible for organizing all sorts of content would be the Google Classroom option, and then also building a Google site. There's a new Google Sites, which is just fantastic to work with. Very easy, very user-friendly, looks way cooler. The kids will like it way more than the old Google Sites. The old Google Sites look like they came straight out of 2004, because back in 04, 05, or whenever it was, that's when Google bought out a website building company, and they didn't really change sites after that, just kind of left it. But now they finally got a refresh, and Google Sites is awesome. You can click on there. When you go to the sites.google.com, you can click on create new site, and then create site, and then click on new sites, and you'll be able to build a new Google site. And then you can create a YouTube channel if you want to talk about just hosting your videos. YouTube makes a great way to store and share videos. You don't have to have everything public. You can even share it just privately with specific email addresses. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And then it becomes all in one place with that solution. And as far as creating things, I'm currently using a Chrome extension. It's called Nimbus Screenshot. Apple's got a built-in screencast, so you can do the same exact thing I'm doing with that, except for it's just within QuickTime. So I like the Chrome extensions because they're right within Chrome, and I can just launch them and stay in Chrome and do my presentations. YouTube also has a photo slideshow and a video editor tool. So that makes it a little bit easier to just kind of, if you want to go the YouTube route, just to keep everything in YouTube, just upload it there and edit it right within the browser. Nice thing about that too, because it is browser based, that becomes an option for student created videos, so keep that in mind. And then borrowing and curating. Edpuzzle is a big one that people have been using and teachers use. They'll take video clips from around the web or make their own and then annotate them and add quizzes and different comprehension checks and different things. Really powerful tool, especially for the flip learning thing. So that's something that's accessible. Wisconsin Media Lab is kind of the forgotten resource that hasn't really been talked about in my tenure here. But it's something that was brought to my attention again recently, and there's just a lot of stuff there that's curated, that's pulled together, and obviously school appropriate. It's put on by our own Wisconsin educator peoples, and so that's a good resource. And then another one that I tagged in here lastly, it's just a web whiteboard. If you take that link, it literally takes you to a whiteboard where you use your mouse, you can write around on it. So in a scenario like this where I was doing some screen capture recording, I could technically just be writing right on my screen using my mouse and then able to communicate ideas or explain a problem or that sort of thing. So again, these are tools that we already have. These are things that you can immediately start using to organize, create, and borrow or curate existing stuff that's out there. Ed's going to give us a demo during our presentation on Thursday and talk about a tool that kind of combines the whole creation and not just capturing it, but really working with it in a studio-like software where you have to take several pieces to do this, several free pieces of software to do this, but if we purchase Camtasia, we can do that all in one place. Very nice program to use. A lot of teachers who take this very seriously end up using a tool like Camtasia. And then I just have a few appendices to discuss. These are things that help me frame where tech integration fits into all of this. And of course, tech integration comes in as a way of supporting getting students to those big ideas, maybe helping you with assessments, but really ideally getting kids to where they can be more engaged and be seeing more progress and achieving more when it comes to those learning tasks. And so the first thing I wanted to bring up here is just being intentional about what we're doing and designing stuff with student engagement in mind. Your learning tasks need to be authentic, relevant, linked to real world problems and applications. And then, with that, you're thinking about your audience, you're thinking about your students. Don't just think, okay, is it going to be something that's entertaining for them, but what's something that has some real meat in the game for them? And then what are those big ideas? What are those things that you're linked to, those focus standards that are guiding all of your curriculum, this whole course you're doing? And then what's the level of challenge and the level of competence? Knowing where your kids are at with that, what degree of challenge or how fast can they handle this content, the pacing of it, and what skills and knowledge do they already have, and then balancing that out so that there's that optimal engagement level. Getting them in the goal zone here of our triad would be getting them into the development zone where students are engaged and they are making progress. If I expand on that idea a little bit, here's another graphic that I've come up with. Looking at when we know where our kids are at with the level of challenge and what they can handle, and we also know their level of competency, we are able to keep them in this zone where they are engaged and progressing. And this is based on the research of the zone of proximal development. If you have kids that are experiencing too much of a challenge, whether it's the pace or they just they have a low level of competency and they're facing high challenge, you're going to result in kids with anxiety. And then if there's a low level of challenge and you have kids who are rather competent, they would be further down on the right side. They're going to be struggling more with boredom, just not engaged because they're just bored. So you got your kids who are stressed out and they're full of anxiety, and then you got your kids who are bored. What we're shooting for is getting kids in the zone and where they're engaged and progressing. So these are two factors, this anxiety and boredom, that really what it's negatively affecting is how much your student is engaging and being productive and a contributing member of your classroom. And so what we need to do is be aware of those things, build in our assessments to be able to know what our students can handle as far as challenge and competency, and then scaffolding around that. So if there's students who need more reinforcement, what are we doing? These videos can be a way to do that reinforcing where they get a double dose of the key content that's going to help them build that foundational knowledge. Or maybe curate some videos, put some extra lessons together for students who, because they can handle that higher level of challenge, they're up here kind of in the upper right. They can handle a higher level of challenge, and they have a higher level of competency. You can pull together some resources, scaffold them with maybe some student choice where they get to go kind of above and beyond the project, or they get some extra enrichment that maybe gathers in a few extra supporting standards and different things. And really getting to where they can demonstrate mastery in those big ideas. So I'm going to get out of this here. You can see how I used our tools here. We have Google Slides. I just put a slideshow together like I would any other presentation. Use Nimbus Screenshot to get it going. You can see that that's running. And then just using the tools that we have to make this easier to go through. See you tomorrow.